when I first watched Arcane, I hated Jinx. Even though she's not my favorite character now, I no longer hate her. But you can imagine my shock when I was looking through comment sections and she seemed to be the most popular character. I just couldn't understand it. Why did people love her so much? So I figured instead of driving myself crazy, I'm going to attempt to figure out why she retains the love of so many despite having killed and hurt so many other characters. A luxury that Jace pre-season 2 was not afforded. So obviously, before I get ahead of myself, I must address the elephant in the room. A lot of Jinx's fans already knew her prior to watching Arcane due to League of Legends. In the game, she was essentially Harley Quinn 2.0, a fun, crazy character. And who doesn't like those kinds of characters? On top of that, if she hurt any people, it was mostly random background characters that weren't loved by audiences. So it wasn't a big deal. Maybe a couple of the newer fans were just following the trend of loving Jinx because everyone else was doing it, but that's debatable. The show starts with establishing Jinx's tragic past. We are shown her parents passing when she's probably too young to understand the concept of death. We are shown her struggle with being like the rest of her siblings because she seems to not be very gifted in the fighting and jumping off roofs area, though that could be because she's the youngest. We are made to sympathize with her as Milo constantly taunts her for not being as good at fighting and running and physical stuff, basically, and seemingly being a Jinx. And we watch as she desperately tries to prove that she can be useful and do something right. We watch as her desire to prove herself ends tragically, with her accidentally ending the lives of her adopted brothers and indirectly causing her father's demise. She has a very horrible start to life, and the show doesn't hold back on letting the audience know that. But the interesting thing is that they don't use this backstory to justify her later actions. We are given an explanation through her backstory that clearly shows the audience why Jinx is the way she is. Her mental health is shown to already not be so good even before the bomb thing. We are shown that the trauma after the bomb thing takes a toll on her already unstable mental health. As I said before, she's written with enough nuance that although her accidentally killing her family wasn't good, the show acknowledges this while making it obvious that she's a tortured character who desperately needs psychological help instead of jail time. They don't shy away from showing us how her actions affect others negatively because the explanation given does not attempt to justify her actions, but instead it aims to humanize her and make us understand where she's coming from. I despise it when characters do the most crazy actions that hurt more than one person, but the writers try to excuse it by writing a BS dramatic backstory that doesn't seem very thought out and giving the character mental illnesses to defend their actions. Arcane writers don't do that with Jinx, and I think it helps the likability of her character significantly. The introduction of Isha was what made me see Jinx in a new light, before I rewatched Season 1, of course. Jinx doesn't really have anything to live for up until she meets Isha. She's killed 4 out of 5 of her loved ones and is not even on speaking terms with the remaining one. Even though she's clearly still not mentally well, she tries to be better for this child she adopts and she didn't have to. She puts herself in danger just to save her newfound sister or daughter, and unlike the first time she attempted to save a loved one, she succeeds and saves so many more lives as well. We slowly start to see a different side of Jinx, a more playful and happier side of her. Up to this point, we have been continuously shown that Jinx often has good intentions. She wants to help and prove that she's useful, but she's just not suited for fistfights. This, together with the different side of her we get to see when Isha is a part of her life, can make the audience wonder what could have been if her childhood was different. If she was born in Piltover instead of Zaun, or better yet, if Zaun was just as good or almost as good as Piltover. Season 2 answers these questions, proving that Jinx is in fact a victim of circumstance. Her alternate reality self is much healthier physically and mentally, and the fact that she hasn't been forced to fight to survive has allowed her to focus on what she's actually good at. Clearly, Jinx's talents were always in creation. She's obviously a very smart character whose talents in machinery would have contributed positively to her world if given a chance. She's a loving character who tried to prove her usefulness in the ways that were praised in Zaun, being a strong fighter, which she obviously wasn't. It's like expecting someone who sucks at sports to suddenly play them for survival. Of course they're going to mess up. And if the ball is explosive, a small mistake could cost a lot. In Jinx's reality, there are no opportunities for the intellectual abilities, so people like her get regarded as useless, and that's just sad. Jinx is a tragic character. Arcane shows us that under different circumstances, her talents could have been used to help instead of hurt, which is what she wanted before everything. Under different circumstances, she could have gotten the mental help she so desperately needed as a child and stopped her mental health from getting so much worse. What I also like about the show is that it doesn't romanticize her illness. It's not depicted as something cool or quirky, but as something that she would be way happier without. They explain why she is the way she is, but do not ask us to excuse her actions because she's been through so much, but to understand her instead. They show us that she's not too far gone, that she still cares deeply and has good in her heart, that she can still be helped. I think all these combined are what make her likable. She's flawed but also sympathetic, and the popularity of characters like her and Kaz prove that this is what audiences and readers crave. Characters who are not perfect but are very flawed and they own up to it.